Hello, this is Patricia Walls with the Enlightened Path podcast, and I'm here today with Micki Klein. Again, we recorded this once, and I had some video issues, and so we're doing it again because I wanted you to be able to see Micki when she talks to you. And so thank you for joining us, Micki. Even though we had a recording from yesterday, I'm going to go ahead and tell people a little bit about you, okay?
Thank you.
So I've known Micki from the community for, I don't know, seems like forever, at least 10 years, maybe less, maybe more, because I'm horrible with time. But Micki's been doing astrology, tarot, and lithomancy professionally since 1979, after she saw her own house fire and knew the only escape for her and her family. And she combines her spiritual insights and her non-judgmental manner to give accurate readings, face-to-face, email, and by phone. And she also works through Zoom, I understand. Her intuition offers guidance in seeing new opportunities, assisting in releasing old, limiting, and self-sabotaging patterns. And her clients agree, and I agree, that her encouragement has allowed them to accept new challenges with grace. So when you have a reading with Micki, she'll touch on all the areas of your life, answer all your questions. And the years of experiences prove that the detailed and highly accurate reading will open new pathways to the areas that you need most. And one of the things that I found interesting is Micki developed her own tool called Lithomancy. And she's going to talk to you about that and show you, give you a little example of it. So welcome, Micki. Thank you for having patience with this process and for agreeing to come back. And
thank you, Patricia, for the honor of being here. And I love the name of your podcast. I didn't coin the term lithomancy. Lithomancy means rock reading. Planetary lithomancy is the process that I use because I read the stones representing each one representing a planet within an astrological structure. I use this board, which has been designed, what only has a single word for each of the houses, although a house encompasses a lot more than one word, but it's a focus, and it shows where the stones representing the planets fall. So when I sit down with a client, we look at, I ask them what sign they are, nothing else, because I want to know what their ruling planet is. And I see where that falls, and that's the biggest indicator of what's going on in their lives. I read from the inside out, in the center, because those are the things that are going to happen the soonest, and things that fall off the board, and they do, are it's like a retrograding planet, or that energy, and I like the word energy, is not in play right now. And sometimes we need to focus and meditate to bring that energy back in, because it's out of bounds. If somebody's wanting a new romance and Venus and Mars are not playing, it's they're being too serious, and they're working on their jobs and everything else. And sometimes you got to look at the whole person, see what's going on with them. When I do private clients, we often do this reading on their own astrology chart. So it's a little more intensified and a lot more information, because you've got the basis of who they are. And of course, I'm looking at it and seeing what the tendencies are to begin with. And I started reading. I came from a family where the intuitive stuff was very prevalent, and it wasn't hidden. My mother used to write letters to herself and mail them as proof somebody's pregnant and having a baby boy, and they don't even know they're pregnant yet. Or sometimes it's, they're getting divorced, or there's a problem. but she kind of tracked it that way, and she would wave that piece of paper and say, see, I told you I was right. So I had confidence in my abilities, and it was not a no to be saying she's having a boy, or that one's getting married, or that's not the, when I was a teenager. I always had an interest in all of the metaphysical modalities, the healing modalities, the divination modalities. But astrology was like my basic. It was my basic because within an astrology chart, it will show you where a person needs healing. If that's a physical illness, an emotional illness that they're causing themselves, or fear-based, or whatever's causing it, and in the body, it needs to be released. And it's right there on the chart, the tendency there. So it gets more and more interesting. And here it is, 40 some odd years later. I teach classes, I teach them via Zoom. I'm still learning. There's always, there's always someone who has a book out, and it's just like any modality. There's a book out, or there's a speaker, and you want to hear what they've got to say on a similar subject. So it's been a journey, been a fun journey.
Yeah. I've heard that before. I recently took a class and in the class, the teacher said that she never stops learning. She's always taking a class. I mean, she's not only a published author, but she teaches, right? And she's got all of these things going, but she said, I never stop learning. I'm always taking a class. She said, it's not always about being an author. It's not always about publishing books. It could be about Qigong. It could be about art. She said, but I'm always taking a class to expand my mind and to stay connected in. And she said, yeah, I go and I buy other books by other published authors to see what they're doing. And so I do that for myself. I'm always taking a class somewhere. I'm always reading something. I'm always watching a video. I'm always looking to see what's out there and how other people are expanding, because we're not separated. And if other people are expanding, then I'm expanding. And if I'm expanding, other people are expanding. And so, yeah,
exactly. Exactly. You nailed that. The people who get stagnant, and there are
right.
people who get stagnant, and their whole lives are about stagnation. I don't care if you're learning about what plants to plant in your garden, you're still learning something.
Right.
It doesn't, just because you get older doesn't mean your brain stops. And my favorite aunt's favorite saying was, a good thing I didn't die yesterday. I wouldn't have known that. And I lived like that. And
That's
she
a
was
good one.
very much a role model to me. And she was an amazing woman. And, you know, uh, you look for those role models when you're growing up, because some people aren't good role models.
Right.
Just because they're related to you or you know them doesn't mean they're a good role model. But I have found that my psychic senses are more and more attuned. I don't advertise that I'm a medium, but medium stuff comes through. If those spirits of those people want to come through, I'm just a channel. I'm not
Right.
calling. And I'm open to that experience. For years, I blocked it because I didn't know what it was. And it was sort
Right.
of like, okay, we'll do this. Let's see how it is.
Right. And we talked about yesterday, we talked about you're not just doing astrology, you're also doing palm reading, you're also doing tarot, right?
I do all of it.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
I could take a red deck of regular cards and read them. And the cards I find are just for the person who's the sitter, querent, who's sitting there just so they relax, because otherwise sometimes people sit down and they're, anxious. So
right,
this way they focus on something, and they're saying, what are all the eights on those cards, whether it's tarot or a regular deck. Eights are money, eights are business. You need to know these different things, like numerology and energies, all kinds of energy.
Right.
Is it
Because yeah, and we talked about, because what works for one person doesn't work for everybody. And so you have these people sit down with you, and some of them are blocked, even though they ask for a reading, right? They're blocked. And if you're distracting them by cards or by numbers or by
stones?
a bones or whatever, then they drop that shield sometimes, and they allow you in order
Exactly.
to get that intuitive information. Yeah.
That's why the stones, they're not, it's a set of 10 stones. They're matched, they're consecrated, they're set. It's not just I picked them up. I mean, they've been out in the sunlight, they've been out in the moonlight, the full moon, the whole tray goes out. When I make a set, I think of that person and their energies. And I sell sets for those who want to learn it. And it's a cool tool. And I use a small set of stones. My hands aren't that big. Some people want big stones. It's okay. I have a teaching board that's, when I teach as a class, it's a large board, so we could throw the stones onto that. It doesn't bother me.
Right.
It's what they want, and if it's going to work. And each stone is a different planet, and each stone has a correspondence energetically to that planet. The colors may match, the colors do match, so that someone with a little bit of even astronomy knowledge will go, oh, that's got to be Jupiter because it's the biggest one. Or Mars
Right.
is red. You don't need to know a whole lot other than, things that people have learned over the years.
Why only 10 planets?
Because that's all there are. Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. There are asteroids. Well, because it would get cluttered, number one, and confusing. But I just use the 10 basic planets. So there are times in certain readings that you look at certain asteroids. But in a general reading, especially a 15-minute at a fair, the less is more.
Right.
Yeah. I don't use asteroids as much as some people do, or midpoints or any of that. Not that I don't know it. Sometimes I'll look at it for a reason. Choosing a wedding date would be a reason. Something like that, to look at midpoints midpoints is halfway between two planets, for lack of a better description. But no, I just use the 10 because it's easy, and I'm all into simplifying as much as you can, because the universe, if you're open to it, the universe gives you so much information.
Right.
And you just have to open the door to let the light in.
And what are some of the reasons that people contact you for readings?
Oh, people come to me for when there's a change going on, career change, breakup, no relationship. They want to know what's going on and how they can recenter themselves and what they might do to improve their chances. And in the natal astrology chart, some people are wired that they won't allow themselves to have a relationship till they're established in their career. Other people are the other way around. They have to have that, they have to have that relationship. It's the motivator to move forward. And those are it's an easy spot in a chart to see how a person is wired. And once someone understands, oh, I need to be happy in my career, or where do I meet people? That's usually what people, and I tell people, do what you love to do. You like dogs, go to the dog park. You're interested in, go to a club that does photography. I met my husband playing Scrabble online,
Did you really? That's
Yeah,
crazy.
I
Hey,
was
can you push your laptop out just a little bit?
sure.
Because I can only see here for you.
Oh, okay. Well, that's it. You
There
won't
you
do
go.
that. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I was widowed and I certainly wasn't looking. And but I was bored. And for me, mental stimulation, I just wasn't going to just, it was 23 years ago. So the internet didn't have as much content, but there were games, and I like board games. And I met this man who was very pleasant, had great vocabulary, didn't know how to play Scrabble at all. But that wasn't important. We were having a conversation.
Yeah.
23 years later, here we are together, still playing Jeopardy against one another almost every night, because
Oh, are you?
that's part
That's
of our
good.
game. Everybody's got a different connection. For us, it's the gaming. It's not game. He knows all this history stuff, and it's like, I don't know that stuff. I'm kind of artsy fartsy, just don't even remember books I read
Uh-huh.
or who the author was. I'm not. I don't do those war stuff and the stuff that he does. But men are wired differently.
Yeah.
But people ask me, how do I meet somebody? I said, stop worrying about it and just be. You're a human being, not a human doing.
Yeah.
And there are opportunities. He's like even here in the Metroplex for people to meet other people. There's lots going on.
Mhm. Yeah, there's always something going on in this community.
It's wonderful.
It
It's
is.
wonderful.
So tell us a little bit more about your classes and what you're offering.
Okay, I offer a beginner astrology class a couple of times a year. And that goes through just about everything of how to read a natal chart and what's going on in your life. It's 5 classes. It's done via Zoom. I've had people all over the country join us. Florida, Dakotas, California, wherever. I'm doing a more advanced class on timing because people have been asking for it. I do some single classes here or there, like when we had COVID, because COVID was so impactful on our lives. And I didn't even charge for those. It was like a public service because I know everybody was hurting emotionally. I'm doing this next class is starting June 14th. And it's going to be 7 classes on Wednesday nights. And it's on timing, which is, there's a lot of different tools in astrology for timing. And if you just use one, you can't really zero in, but it's a combination of influences at once that's going to make, if it's just one influence, it's just a flirt. It's almost like an idea. It's not concrete. But when you've got 3 or 4 different actions on your natal planet telling you certain things, whether it's about business, whether it's about romance, whether it's about family, whether it's about relocating, making changes to your home. And I'll have people come to me, well, should I upgrade my home or should I move? Kind of thing. And then you're looking at the home. And of course, there's also the emotional things that people have their sibling rivalry and people don't get along with their families or whatever. But those are your typical people who are looking for help, and I want to help.
Right.
Um,
Oh, you also mentioned to me that you do parties and such like that, not just parties, but events, that sometimes people want to provide an educational outlet or a fun outlet for people. And so they'll ask you to come and do, short teachings or readings or palmistry even. That has to be fun.
It's a lot of fun. It's what I like best. I work a couple of gigs a month. I'd like to work more. Whether it's palmistry, cards, usually they have an idea of what they want. And it'll give you a certain amount of hours. And it depends where it is, and how far it is, whether I'm going to charge a time charge for going there.
Right.
But it's I love doing events. Of course, during Halloween and Christmas, corporate Christmas parties, then I'm the busiest. There should be some weddings over the summer. I usually get some of those: bridal showers, weddings, baby showers. I've done just about every kind of event you could ever imagine,
I
and they're
think
fun.
those really sound fun though, don't they? I mean, because you usually have the boring, oh, we're going to open gifts, you know.
Yeah, this is so much. It's really a lot of fun to do those kind of events, and
Yeah,
the more of those I get, the happier I am. They're really um, I've gained some private clients from those, but usually it's sort of, I'm there to entertain. If somebody else set up if I set it up directly, it's one thing, and if somebody else sets it up directly, it's another. Um,
right.
but I work through different people who will say, do you want to do this gig? The answer is almost always yes.
What's the most interesting one you ever did for you? What's the best one that you ever did?
Oh, there's been so many. They're all fun.
Yeah,
I don't think I've
none
ever
of
had a
them are
bad
memorable.
one.
Yeah.
Memorable. Several of them were memorable. Um,
Okay.
one Christmas party, for corporate Christmas party, it was memorable because not only did we work it and were paid lavishly, we were tipped very generously on top of it, which that one just stood out in my head right now. It was like, yeah, thank you. Merry Christmas to you too.
Yeah.
It
Happy
was,
prosperity. Yeah.
yeah. And other ones just are 2 hours in someone's house. I've even done a 2-year-old birthday party, and it's keeping the parents busy. And that was just fine.
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy.
It's fun.
Wouldn't it be great if someone has anybody ever hired you to go like on their vacation with them?
Not yet, but I'm open to that.
That would be interesting, wouldn't it?
It would be a lot of fun.
We're going to the Bahamas and we want to take someone with us. Would you go? Heck yeah, right?
You better believe it. I'm packed already.
So what about so I think you shared with me that you're not doing fairs anymore. And
I'm
so
just taking. I'm taking a hiatus from the fairs.
Yeah,
The 2-day fairs are exhausting. I do
right.
not have the stamina for the 2-day. Even the 1-day fairs, the traffic isn't the same as before COVID.
Yeah,
And I've just noticed that, and I don't know the cause of it. There's no blame. People don't have the funds, I've, they're not spending as much. Even the vendors are saying the same thing. They're not,
right,
they're not making as, and I've
right.
worked events where I haven't even made table money.
Yeah,
You pay a certain amount for a table, and if you don't make that $200 or $300, you're minus. Plus, you're exhausted, and you still got to bring your stuff back to your facility.
right.
It's hard.
I am hearing that a lot, that there's this energetic shift going through. And I mean, if you go to any Walmart, any restaurant, maybe not Walmart, but any restaurant, any mall, the parking lot is full, and people do come to the shows, but they're just not, they're walking around, or that's what I've seen. Not a lot of spending.
Not a lot of
So
spending at all. Well, a lot of people are hurting. A lot of people lost their jobs. People, their businesses have been slow. It was devastating, to a lot of people, this COVID stuff.
right, right.
And I lost a lot of people. Older people died from it.
Hmm.
And it was coming, and I was just saying, I'm not having the fun that I used to have at these fairs. They used to be a lot of fun for me. If it's not fun, I don't want to do it anymore.
Right. So you're making these boards for people and selling them. Is that one of the classes that you're giving, how to
Um,
use the
yeah, I
planetary
do that. I,
nets?
I do that free online because people will want to practice against strangers. Um,
Mhm.
this set comes with a PDF. I'm going to talk to you privately about printing the book, but it's about 110 pages, and that's an expense. And it's got, pictures in it and a lot of graphic in it, as well as text. But the set is the board, the 10 match stones, and then they're welcome to, I do it on Facebook, I do a group. I don't know, every couple of months I'll do 2 or 3 in a row.
Uh-huh.
Not so much in the summer, but I'll do a bunch in the winter and the fall. People are
So
busy.
when they purchase a board, they get a class with it and they get opportunities to practice, right?
Right, but they also get the book. The people who
And
don't
the
want
book, and the book, yeah,
the book has a lot of information and pictures, because people learn in different ways.
right.
So there's pictures in it of, of readings. Are all the stones falling on the bottom half? They're falling over here, over there, without getting into specifics at all. It's all meaningful. If you look at the first thing you look at is where are all those stones, and that's the beginning of it. And then what are they touching? What houses? And I do the free because there's a lot of feedback, and the book that went with it went from 18 pages to 110.
That is a lot. That's a lot of pages for a book.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
well, it's a lot of pictures too.
Uh-huh.
There's a lot of information. When you realize there's 10 planets, 12 houses, 12 signs, there's 1,440 possibilities. It's a lot. But if you synthesize it down, it's like, oh, that's not that tough. And I got to doing that because my own kids have wanted nothing to do with my brainchild. So there were other people who did want to learn it, so I worked with them, and we've had a great time over the years.
Yeah. Yeah, I experienced that with my kids and my grandkids. I mean, they grew up with me, right? Your kids, they grew up with you. And so my kids grew up around these ways that I practice and that I've cultivated and learned and that I share. And none of them really, one granddaughter, one grandchild is interested in doing the work that I do, and they are doing the work that I do. But other than that, out of the 6 grandchildren and 2 children, no one's,
Yeah,
they're doing their own things. And so I have an entire spiritual family, right? That I teach and that I share with, and that call me Mama Pat. And and so sometimes it's that way. I mean, you have an entire community, a spiritual family that follow you and want to learn from you when your own blood family, are off doing, whatever it is that they're doing. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it is interesting how it happens.
It is very common. Of my 4 grandchildren, now my 2 are here in Texas, and 2 are in Alaska. My granddaughter in Alaska, okay, she's fascinated by rocks and stones and crystals. And her mother, I used to take crystal digging, in Arkansas. So there's some specimens, and I always bring her a handmade piece, whether it's a rose quartz heart or a little bracelet or just a stone.
Mhm.
Because she has an interest in them, and I want to, support her curiosity.
Right.
But and it's a
Well, at
different
least you grew up in a house, though, like what you said, your mother was gifted. And so you did grow up in a house. Like you said, you were encouraged, your gifts were encouraged. So many grow up in houses where their gifts aren't encouraged. And so I'm sure that's made a difference for you.
Well, I was encouraged by my mother's side, by my mother. I've always been the tie-dye shape of the family. I was always the one that was different. And it wasn't accepted, and it was very difficult. But this one portion of my mother never used any tools or, anything. She just got information. And I do that. I get flashes of information all the time.
Right.
But
Right. I don't. Yeah, in my readings, I don't use, I've tried to learn tarot, and I've tried to learn runes, and try is not a good word, but I've made a huge attempt to learn tarot and runes, and it just goes straight past me.
It's
And
not your
so,
modality.
right, mine is intuitive knowing. That's it.
Exactly, exactly. I learned tarot. I did it differently than most people. But it was, I was living up north and there was 20 inches of snow and I hand colored a black and white deck. And that's how I learned tarot. I mean, that is how I still have that deck, and it's very powerful. I don't use it. I don't let people, you know, I'll read with it for somebody, but it's 40 years old. I'm pushing 50 years old. So I
Wow,
take care of it. I'm not going to bring it out to just anybody.
right,
But I hand colored it and I learned what each card meant. And that was just my process. Somebody else's process is different. They can read a book or watch a video. I didn't. I
right.
needed to do something. But that's me. You know, you have to know what works for you.
Mhm. Yeah,
But
for me, I just have to trust that I know what I know, and that was a learning process, just like someone has to learn tarot. Some people have to learn tarot or ruins or whatever their
I,
outlet is. I had to remember how to trust what I was receiving, you
well,
know.
my
So,
bestie
yeah,
and I from back east, I'm from New York. We moved to New Jersey. Um, and we moved, I was married, she was single, but we used to read for parents without partners in New Jersey. And we're talking hundreds of people coming for readings, and she read runes. And that's when I got into doing cards because it was public and
right,
it was quick. Um, and that was the first big events I did, and they were really fun because you help people. You know,
right,
when people are touched by what you're saying to them, and they're beating themselves up because they think they're a failure because they're, you know, their family's belief is you're 24 years old and you're not married yet. What's wrong with you?
right.
Yeah. My kids didn't get that from me. I didn't give them the kind of parenting I had.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It was
Well,
like when they were ready, they got ready.
yeah, I think that's kind of universal. I mean, how many times have you heard someone say, I'll never be the kind of parent that you are, just out of anger and resentment, they say that I'll never treat my kids the way you treat me. I've heard that a lot, but in
My
the
parents
community,
did the best they had, they could with what they had, and they didn't
right?
have very much. They had a
There was no
history,
book. There
but
was no book.
and there was a history of bad parenting on
Right,
everybody's lineage. And they thought, it's beat the child. Um, and I promised myself if I chose to have children, I was never going to beat them. I mean, there's discipline without beating, there's a difference. And I
yeah,
really spanked.
yeah.
I bribed and I took things away.
Hmm.
But I did
Yeah,
pretty good.
it's
My kids
amazing.
have turned out really, really special. I'm very blessed.
Yeah,
But it's been a journey and I'm still on it. It's like it's never ending. I'm always learning more. Um, I've done some studies on crystals. I'm a certified crystal healer. I haven't done much with it, but it did help me to put these sets together to be more empowering to the user.
right.
If that makes any sense. I mean, I spent a year studying once a week and buying stones and yada, yada, yada. And all I managed to do out of that was to put together better sets. So,
Well, you shared that with me once before, that in your process of putting the sets together, that you're very selective about the
um,
energy of the stone, the color of the stone, and the way that they feel together.
yeah,
You
I mean, I hold them in my hand. Now there is the thing that some of them are going to roll. Some of them are rounded and going to, so I'm going to draw, I'm going to test them. And if something looks off, I'll replace it and see that it
Right.
fits with the group. So sometimes and I'm sure there's a way of doing this But I use natural stones. I guess I could use little glass things that were all alike in different colors, but I think it would ruin, for me, it would ruin the energy of the stones.
Right.
I like the natural energy of things. You know,
I've got one sister who will not work with tumbled stones. You know, she won't work with tumbled stones. She will only work with natural,
yeah,
I guess you could say untouched or, you know, not manufactured, but
they're
she
not
will only
manufactured.
work with raw stones. Yeah.
I've dug crystals and so I know the whole process, but tumbling just takes off the sharp edges.
Now she won't even work with those, is what I'm saying.
I get it.
Yeah.
Some people won't, but
Yeah.
and for certain things I won't either. If I'm doing a full moon meditation and I'm setting up if you want to call it an altar or new moon meditation, I'm going to be working with natural stones. I'm not going to be working
Right.
with tumbles. And
Right.
I will be putting other things on my altar, table, whatever you want to call that. It depends what energy I want to bring in.
Right. I can see that. I mean, it's all about the energy. And
Well, everything is energy. You know that.
yeah. And even when you've purchased a stone from somebody, by the time we get this stone, right, it's got not only DNA, but energetic imprints. It's got, you know, it's got programs focused onto it. And so when you get them, you have to clear them anyway.
Exactly.
You know, whatever it is that
Exactly.
you're working with, you've got to clear them anyway once you get them, because otherwise you're dealing with,
Other
I don't know,
people's,
up to
other people.
100, 200 people's energies on that one tiny Herkimer stone that you've got has got has got programming and energies and
Well,
imprints. And like I
it
said,
came
even
in with
DNA.
it came in with programming.
Right, right.
And even when I've dug them, and I dug a massive amount of crystals in Arkansas many years ago, to the point where all the not pretty ones became a rock garden.
Yeah.
Because they weren't saleable, they weren't perfect, but they had good energy and it was a good meditation space. I wish I had done it and taken it all and boxed it and put it for here, but Spirit said leave it there. It belonged to that land. So, but I love working with people. I love helping people. It's what we do. It's what we're
Yeah.
here for.
And so how would someone contact you if they wanted your services?
They can email me, always on Facebook. They can message me on Facebook. They can go to my website. Well, sometimes from my website, I don't get the messages, and I'm not a techie, so I don't know what that problem is. But I'm going to work on my website project to get done is after the summer to redo revamp it, the entire website. So
Yeah, and your website is called wisdommuse.com.
that's great. Right.
And you also have, I have a couple of links, 3 links that I'm going to put on the podcast. There's a sort of like a bio section, and I'm going to have your picture there. And I've got 3 links. There's one that you did a YouTube on planetary lithomancy.
Many years ago. Yeah, when I tried to do a Kickstarter and it didn't kick and it really didn't start. That was the first half a dozen people who bought a set. And I think they just bought it out of kindness, going, oh, I love it. Micki's great. So I'm just going to spend my money and help her. I don't think those people were that interested. Well, several of them were, but you don't know.
Yeah. And so if someone wanted to contact you for, to be, I don't like the word entertainment, but to be, to bring your gifts to their event. I like that better.
I've been
To bring
more
your
than
gifts
happy
to their event.
to talk to them about.
They just contact you through Facebook or Wisdom Muse.
Or email me, wisdomsmuse.com at Gmail.
Uh-huh.
Or on my website, my phone number's there. They can call me and they're saying, or having a wedding. I would say Halloween. I'm not booked yet, but I will. The whole month of October is fun.
Fills up quick, huh?
Oh, it's fun though, because we get to
Yeah.
costume up and do all kinds of fun stuff.
I've never done any of that, but I can imagine it would be fun.
It's a lot of fun. But you got to change. The thing is, those are quick reads. Those have been quicker than Dallas Psychic Fair, which are 15 minutes. Well, to me, they're 12 minutes because you got to clear. Any more questions? Because the next person is going to be here, is standing there already.
Right,
Um,
right.
Basically, those are an appetizer for, longer personal reads. But I haven't seen that happening in the last several years at any of the fairs. People are just there to get a quick read about something going on in their life. I don't know what you found, but that's what I found.
I read there for 2, maybe 3 years. I don't know how long it was that I did readings at the Dallas Psychic Fair, and it's not a criticism, but for me, it was the assembly line reading just wasn't for me. Knowing, they block you in 15-minute increments, but like you said, 3 minutes or more of that, you're introducing. Sometimes they want to know, well, what is light language? And so I spend 5 minutes of their time explaining what I do. And then, the reading is intuitive. And then, like you said, there's a wrap up to it. And so it was like, bam, 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 bam. There was no breathing in between.
Exactly.
And so I don't do readings at any of the fairs anymore because I just, I want to be able to give more, take more time. So I only do readings by phone or by Zoom or,
I do.
however.
I do Zoom, I do phone, or certain people I allow to come to my home.
Right.
I have clients that come to my home. I'm not afraid of having anybody come to although people have found my address and knocked at my door. If you have an appointment, we've agreed to meet. It's okay.
That is so weird, isn't it? How people can do things like that. But
yeah, somebody showed up at my doorstep, but I've got a big husband and a big dog. So, and I will tell you that my dog will sit by me and be so protective. And she's the gentlest giant you ever saw. But I'm sure if somebody came near me, she's big and she's strong.
yeah, I've got Jed is over here right now, and he's 100+ pounds.
Maggie's just under 100. We've got her on a low weight, the weight loss diet, and the beagle needs that too.
Oh yeah. Well, he's a Rhodesian Ridgeback. And
that's
so
what
he's
Maggie
not
is.
overweight, he's just gargantuan.
That's what Maggie is. She's a Rhodesian
really.
Ridgeback. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
the best dogs ever.
He is so loving, and so, I mean, he's just very protective. But yeah.
She's done some amazing things, and she was so abused. She was so terribly abused.
Well, she's
she
lucky
didn't know
to
what.
have you. Yeah.
Well, I rescued her. I went out to East Texas to get her. I saw her face and said, "That's my dog." But when I had a hip replacement, she saw me come into the house and she dragged her bed into my bedroom. And she parked herself there, and it was like she was going to take care of me.
Yeah.
And she's done it with my husband with the broken leg, and the 2 dogs have just been the reason he hasn't gone crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, he's very protected.
And they're strong. And you've never seen them act out, but I wouldn't want to see anybody hurt me because she would kill him.
Yeah. Well, we finally, I had to purchase a sign that we put on the fence gate that says, not only are we protected by cameras, but we also have a massive dog. So be warned, because all of the delivery people are terrified of him.
Yeah, I've had people be afraid of, but for my household, I do have some people come to my house. from time to
Yeah.
time. Not everybody, but they're, sometimes you're reading for somebody for 5, 6, 10 years, they become friends.
Right. People
Right.
that you know. Yeah.
And they come for regular interval readings. Well, of course I'm going to let them come to my house.
Mhm.
Those people know I have dogs and they love dogs. Not everybody loves dogs.
Right. Yeah, I do hypnosis, and those are in person. But we have a huge house, and he just gets sequestered to the other side of the house. He stays in the other side of the house with my husband. So,
That's pretty
because
much
you never know, how people feel about your dogs, and it's unproductive, if they're coming to you for healing, and then you scare the bejesus out of them with
unfair
with a
to them.
massive dog.
Yeah, it's actually, you got to be more afraid of the little beagle because she taught Maggie how to howl. She taught Maggie how to growl. Maggie didn't do these things. She was on a breeding farm.
Oh
She
my.
had babies and she didn't know what a toy was, and she didn't know what a treat was. And it was pathetic. And of
Yeah.
course she did balk at a cage, but I didn't push the cage because I could tell she freaked out.
Hmm. Yeah.
I didn't push her to go in the cage because she was kept in a cage.
Yeah, he was a rescue as well, but he was 2 months old. So,
Oh, he was a baby. She was about a year. Oh, and my dogs come and go. We have a doggy door. We have a
yeah,
covered patio, and they just do their business, go outside, sit in the sun.
yeah, he has free reign. We have an acre, and he has
Oh,
free
gee,
reign
where do you
yeah,
live?
in Waxahachie.
Oh, okay.
We're out in
Nice.
the country, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's fenced, and we have the doggy door. So he has free reign. He's well kept.
Well, they have to be, if they're your family.
He's well paid for his services. Trust me. Yeah, because he
Yeah.
gets lots of love and
Treats and whatnot.
yeah.
Dogs are
Well,
great.
thank you so much
Mhm.
for agreeing to come on today for a
No
redo.
problem.
And I'm sorry for all the people that missed all of the tidbits of information from yesterday that we had to try to recapture.
It is
But
what it is.
it
But
is
thank
what
you
it
so
is.
much for having me. It's quite an honor, and I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. And I'm going to post those links so that people can contact you for readings, for a class, for a board, and or to get you to come to their event and share.
Yeah,
So
events are
you.
cool. Events are fun.
Yeah.
They're really, it's a different. Sometimes you do one after another. They kind of line up. I've done weddings, so before the service, there are people who you're reading for, and then then it gets very quiet, and then afterwards. So those are always a lot of fun,
Yeah. Sounds like fun.
but they're
Well,
exhausting.
I'm going to close out the podcast for now. Don't get out though. I'm not going to close you out. I'm just going to close out the podcast. So thank you all for joining us on this episode of the Enlightened Path podcast with Micki Klein and me. And so please remember to check follow at the top of the podcast website so that you get notified when a new podcast has been uploaded, because they're not live. I have a schedule, but they're not live. And so they're recorded and then uploaded. So be sure and check follow so you'll get a notification of when a new one has been uploaded. And also consider checking the patron box there, because it helps me to cover the cost of doing all of this. So we'll see you all on the next podcast.
Thank you.